She was barefoot in the flooded hallway when she saw the man's silhouette, soaked, bleeding, and carrying her unconscious grandmother in his arms. Water lapped at their knees. The wind howled through the shattered window panes, shrieking like something alive. A heavy picture frame floated by, bumping against her leg. The air was thick with salt and debris, stinging her eyes. She couldn't see his face clearly, just the dark outline of a man who looked impossibly calm in the middle of chaos. He didn't speak. He just nodded at her, then gently laid the old woman on the only dry patch of floor left in the crumbling living room. "Where did you come from?" Alina gasped, barely able to breathe. The man didn't answer. "You need to get out. This house won't hold for much longer." His voice was deep but oddly distant, as if he wasn't fully here. Outside, Hurricane Michael was ripping through Panama City like a monster with no mercy. Alina had already watched 2 homes across the street collapse like they were made of cardboard. Her grandmother had collapsed from stress and exhaustion hours earlier, and Alina had been on the verge of giving up until he appeared. She stared at him, stunned. Who just walks into a storm like this? Who risks everything for strangers? Before she could speak again, he turned around, stepped back through the broken door, and disappeared into the wind. The rescue boats arrived 2 hours later, engines roaring above the wind's fury. The Coast Guard screamed for survivors, scanning the rising waters. They found 3 people alive in the neighborhood: Alina, her unconscious grandmother, and a man's body a few blocks away. But the dead man wasn't Ezra. He was wearing a jacket similar to the one the stranger wore, but the face wasn't right. Alina stared at him, then shook her head. "That's not him," she whispered. The responders chalked it up to confusion. People were seeing all kinds of things. In disasters, the mind plays tricks. She must have imagined it, but she hadn't. 3 days passed. Alina was staying in a temporary shelter just outside the city. Her grandmother was recovering slowly in a hospital. The doctors said she'd be okay. That was supposed to be good news. But Alina couldn't stop thinking about the man. She hadn't dreamed him. He was real. His voice, his presence, the way he carried her grandmother like she weighed nothing. She didn't even know his name. Then, on the 3rd night, as she sat eating crackers in a corner of the shelter, she looked up at the communal TV. It was a local news update. Volunteers missing, rescue efforts ongoing. That's when the photo flashed across the screen. Her heart stuttered. It was him, Ezra Cole, the anchor said. 32-year-old volunteer responder last seen, entering Panama City during Hurricane Michael. No contact since. If you have seen this man, please contact... Alina stood up so fast, she knocked her plastic tray over. People turned and stared, but she didn't care. She grabbed her phone, barely holding a charge, and snapped a picture of the screen. Before it changed, it was him, Ezra Cole. The image was blurry, probably taken during an earlier storm response. But she remembered those eyes, calm, intense, kind. But the report made no sense. They said he hadn't checked in, that no one on any rescue team had seen him, that he'd vanished during the storm. How could someone save her and then vanish? Like smoke. Back at the hospital the next morning, Alina sat beside her grandmother's bed. She looked frail but conscious. Her hands were thin and pale, resting on the blanket. "Grandma," she said softly, "do you remember the man who carried you out?" Her grandmother's eyes blinked slowly. "What man?" "The man who brought you to the front room. You were unconscious, but he saved you. Tall, brown hair, calm. I think his name is Ezra." Her grandmother stared at her for a long time, her lips parting slightly. "Ezra?" Alina hesitated. "Yes, that's what the news said. Ezra Cole. He's missing now." Her grandmother looked away, her face suddenly unreadable. "Grandma," Alina asked, Do you know him?" Her grandmother closed her eyes. "I don't remember," she whispered. But something in her voice cracked. A tone Alina had never heard before. She was hiding something. Later that night, Alina sat on her cot at the shelter, staring at her duffel bag. Most of her things had been lost in the flood, but one item survived: her grandmother's purse, rescued during the evacuation. She unzipped it absent-mindedly, digging through wet receipts, a broken mirror, some melted cough drops. And then something caught her eye, an envelope. It was damp, edges curled, but her name was clearly written on the front in black ink. She frowned. Her grandmother never wrote like that. The handwriting was sharp, bold. She opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper, smeared but still legible. Not everything lost in the storm was meant to be found. There was something else. A photograph. Alina's fingers trembled as she pulled it out. It was a picture of her grandmother, younger, maybe in her 40s, standing beside a man. It was Ezra. There was no mistaking him. Same face, same calm eyes, same quiet strength. But the date printed on the back stopped her cold. August 1984. She checked again. It wasn't possible. Ezra was 32 years old. He would have been born around 1991 or 1992. This photo was taken 7 years before he was even born. Her heart pounded. Her breath caught in her throat. Was it a mistake? A doctored photo? Or had her grandmother known Ezra long ago? Alina couldn't sleep. Questions swirled like the hurricane winds. She pulled out her phone again, searched everything she could find about Ezra Cole. There wasn't much, just a missing persons report, a few scattered mentions of him doing volunteer rescue work, a Facebook page with no recent posts. She messaged the contact number listed on the missing report, but no reply came. Then she dug deeper into public records, birth certificates, death records, and that's when she found something that chilled her to the bone. Ezra James Cole, born 1952, died 1985. She stared at the name for a full minute. Same first name, same last name. Even the middle initial matched. He would have been in his 30s in 1984, just like the man in the photo. Her grandmother had known him. The man who saved them wasn't just missing. He was dead for over 30 years. She returned to the hospital the next morning. Her grandmother was awake, sipping weak tea from a styrofoam cup. Alina sat down quietly. "I found the photo," she said. Her grandmother froze. "Ezra Cole," Alina continued. "You knew him, back in the 80s. Her grandmother didn't. And sir, he saved us, me and you, during the storm. Her grandmother's hands trembled slightly. She set the cup down. "You must be mistaken. I'm not. I saw him. He carried you. I spoke to him. And now he's missing again." Silence. Then her grandmother looked up. Her eyes were glassy, haunted. "He died," she said hoarsely. "Ezra died a long time ago." Alina swallowed hard. "How did he die?" Her grandmother's voice cracked. "He died, saving me, during another hurricane, a long time ago." Alina's mouth went dry. "He went out into the storm to find help. Just like this time. He never came back." Tears welled up in her grandmother's eyes. "I never told anyone. I blamed myself. He loved me. I should have stopped him." Alina felt a chill creep up her spine. "He came back," she whispered. "He came back and saved you again." That night, as the wind quieted and the city tried to breathe again, Alina stood outside the hospital and looked up at the stars. Her mind was racing, but something inside her felt calm. She didn't know if she believed in ghosts, but she knew what. She knew what he did, and she knew it wasn't over, because that envelope, that note, it was new, written recently, and in handwriting she would later match to something else entirely. Someone else knew Ezra had returned, and someone didn't want her to find out why. The door that shouldn't open. Alina hadn't slept since she saw the writing on the wall. I never really left. The words looped through her mind like a broken record. Her grandmother's storm-wrecked house stood in silence, but the air felt watched. Every creak in the floorboards whispered secrets. Every shadow in the corners seemed too still. She hadn't told anyone about the message, not the rescue workers, not even her grandmother. It felt personal, like it was meant only for her, and that scared her more than the storm ever did. The next morning, Alina visited the local records office. She needed answers, not just about Ezra, but about her grandmother too. She had lived in Panama City her whole life, but somehow she had never once mentioned a man named Ezra Cole. The clerk behind the counter was an older woman named Bernice, with tired eyes and pink glasses. "I'm looking for any records tied to an Ezra Cole," Alina asked, her voice low. "Born around 1952, died in 1985, maybe tied to a storm incident." Bernice narrowed her eyes and typed something into her outdated computer. We had a Hurricane Kate that hit around November 1985. Let me pull up archived files. Might take a sec." She left to rummage through the back office, Alina's. Heart pounded. She looked around the faded room. Maps, disaster charts, yellowed photographs of ruined buildings. When Bernice returned, she was holding a file folder with brittle paper. "Found something strange," she said, frowning. "Name matches Ezra James Cole. Volunteered during Hurricane Kate. Went missing during a rescue effort." Alina took the folder gently. There was a report, hand-typed, a brief statement. Volunteer Ezra J. Cole left to retrieve help for 2 injured civilians on 19th Street. Never returned. Presumed dead. Then she turned the page and gasped. A photo. The same one from the envelope in her grandmother's purse. "Where did this photo come from?" she asked Bernice. Bernice shook her head. "Was submitted with the official storm report in 85. No one claimed it. We just archived it." Alina stared down at the picture, her grandmother smiling faintly, and Ezra standing close beside her, one arm lightly around her back. They looked intimate, like more than friends, like something unspoken bound them. That picture was real, and not photoshopped, not imagined. Real. Back at the shelter that evening, Alina sat with her notebook. She wrote 2 names, Ezra James Cole, born 1952, died 1985, presumed Alma Grace Bennett, her grandmother. She circled them. Below she wrote a question. Why didn't Grandma ever mention him? The door to the shelter opened. A cold breeze swept in. It wasn't raining, but the sky outside looked heavy, pregnant with a storm that hadn't yet arrived. A woman walked in, soaked from head to toe despite the clear weather. Alina frowned. The woman was probably in her 60s, with silver-blonde hair and a pale trench coat. Her eyes were strange, too focused, too still. She walked directly toward Alina. "You're Alma's granddaughter," she said. Alina blinked. "Yes." "I knew Ezra." Alina's skin prickled. "You did?" The woman nodded, eyes glinting. "Long time ago, before the storm that took him." Alina motioned for her to sit. "What was he like?" The woman gave a faint, wistful smile. "Quiet, kind, carried more sadness than most men twice his age. Did he and my grandmother—" The woman looked away. "There was love there," she said softly. "But love during storms is like trying to write in sand. It disappears before you can hold it." Alina swallowed. "I saw him," she confessed. 3 days ago. He saved us. He was alive, or something close to it." The woman stared hard at her. "Then he came back, just like he said he would." Alina leaned in. "What do you mean?" The woman hesitated, then stood. "If he came back, it's because he's not done. He's trying to protect something, or someone." "Protect from what?" The woman's voice dropped to a whisper. "From what took him in the first place." That night, Alina returned to the house again. The rescue crews had mostly left the area. The city was trying to rebuild, but many blocks were still dark, lifeless. She stepped inside her grandmother's ruined home. The writing on the wall was still there, faint but visible. "I never really left." She walked to the back hallway, her flashlight flickering. There was a door she'd never noticed before, small, narrow, behind a sagging bookshelf. It looked wrong, not in place, almost as if it didn't belong in the layout of the house. She pushed the shelf aside and tried the knob. Locked. But as her hand touched it, she heard something faint on the other side, like breathing. Her fingers trembled. She stepped back. Then something clicked. The door creaked open on its own. Behind it was a staircase, descending into darkness. She stood frozen for a full minute. Then she stepped down. The basement was colder than the air outside, moist, the smell of mildew, and earth filled her nose. But it was more than that. It felt old, like she'd stepped back in time. A rusted lamp on the wall flickered to life the moment she passed it. She gasped. In the center of the basement was a wooden table, and on it dozens of items: a folded army-style jacket, a rusted rescue badge, faded photograph of Alma smiling at someone off camera, a black journal bound in cracked leather. She picked up the journal and opened it. Inside, the handwriting matched the envelope she found before. "She told me not to go, but I had to. The water was rising and there were others trapped. I couldn't leave them, even if it meant leaving her. If I die tonight, let this be what they remember. I chose others over myself, but I never stopped loving her." Alina's eyes blurred with tears. Then she flipped to the last page. "If the storm ever comes again, so will I. I made a promise, and I keep my promises." A sound behind her, a footstep. She turned sharply, heart in her throat. No one there. But then the whisper came, "You shouldn't be here." Alina spun around. The door at the top of the stairs slammed shut. She ran up the steps, pounding on the door, yelling, but it wouldn't budge. Then silence. Then a voice, not a whisper this time. A man's voice, soft, calm. "You were never supposed to find this place." She froze. She turned slowly. Ezra was standing at the bottom of the stairs. He looked the same storm-wet jacket, same calm eyes, but his expression was different now. Guarded. Sad. "You're real," she said, her voice shaking. He nodded. "For now. What are you?" He didn't answer right away. Then, something the storm didn't quite take. Her chest tightened. "Why did you save us?" He looked up at her. "Because I owed her. Alma. I made her a promise." And now, he looked past her, toward the door. "They're coming." Alina's blood ran cold. "Who?" His eyes met hers, the ones that feed on loss. "They followed the storm. They found cracks, just like before." "Cracks?" Ezra walked past her, hand brushing the wall. "This house is a crossing point, always has been. Storms tear more than buildings. They tear the veil. You're saying this house opens to somewhere else?" He nodded. "Somewhere not meant for the living." Why did my grandmother hide all of this? Ezra smiled faintly. She tried to forget. After I vanished, she sealed the door, hid the truth. But truth doesn't stay buried forever. The door behind her creaked open, slowly. Light spilled in. Ezra looked toward it, his body flickering faintly, like static on an old TV screen. "I don't have much time." Alina reached for him. "Please, don't go." He looked at her, eyes soft. "Find the key. Not the one for a lock, the one for the storm." And then he was gone. Gone, as if he'd never been there at all. The attic. Holds the wind. The attic. Dubra groaned like something long asleep, disturbed. Dust spilled into the hallway as Alina pulled the rope cord. A cloud of cobwebs clung to the ladder, brittle like old bones. She hadn't been up there since she was a child, and even then, only once. Her grandmother had always kept it locked, dismissing it as a useless storage space. But now, Ezra's final words haunted her. "Check the attic." Alina climbed slowly, flashlight in one hand. heart pounding with each creaking step. The air grew colder as she ascended. Not the natural chill of a forgotten space, but something else. A silence that pressed on her ears. A wrongness, humming. In the boards. When she finally reached the top, she paused. The attic wasn't how she remembered it. It looked untouched by time. Boxes were stacked neatly. An old rocking chair sat near a window, still swaying gently, though there was no wind. The walls were lined with framed photos, all covered in sheets, but beneath the dust, Alina could see glimpses of faces. One frame had fallen, the glass shattered. She knelt beside it, her grandmother again, and Ezra, younger, standing near a lighthouse. Smiling, she brushed the glass away carefully and picked up the photo. Behind it, tucked into the frame's back, was a folded paper, so thin and yellowed it nearly tore when she opened it. It was a letter. Alma, if you're reading this, I didn't. Make it back, but I have to believe I'll return. The storm's not done with me. If something changes, if time bends, know this. The attic holds the wind, and wind remembers. Yours always, Ezra. The attic holds the wind. What did it mean? She stood and walked toward the center of the room, and then she heard it. A soft whistle, not from outside, from inside the attic. She spun around. The old rocking chair had stopped swaying. In its place stood a boy, no more than 8. Pale skin, hollow eyes. Alina gasped, stumbling back. "Who are you?" The boy tilted his head. "You found the journal." "Yes. That means it started." "What started?" The boy looked toward the wall, where a hatch was hidden. Behind a shelf, the breach. He tried to close it, but the wind won't let him. Alina frowned. "Ezra?" The boy nodded once. Then, just as suddenly, he was gone. Vanished. Alina rushed to the hatch he'd pointed to. Her hands trembled as she pulled it open. Behind it was a crawl space, barely wide enough to fit through, but something shone inside. A faint blue light pulsing. She squeezed through, breath tight. The space opened into a small hidden alcove, circular, lined with mirrors. In the center sat a wooden box, humming with faint energy. On top, a compass, not moving. Its needle spun in wild circles. She opened the box slowly. Inside was a bundle of papers, brittle and water-stained. One headline stood out. "Boy found after Hurricane Kate. Claims ghost saved him." The article was from 1985. Alina's breath caught. The boy's photo was grainy but clear enough. It was the boy she'd just seen. She kept reading. 8-year-old Thomas Ridley was found 3 days after Hurricane Kate, alone but unharmed, in an abandoned shed 2 blocks from his home. When asked how he survived, he repeated one name, Ezra. "He had a coat like thunder," Thomas said. "He told me the wind knew my name." Alina flipped to the next page. Another name caught her eye. Dr. Caroline Renner, a psychologist who interviewed Thomas after the storm. She circled it in her notebook. If anyone knew what this meant, it was her. 2 days later, Gulf County Mental Health Institute. The receptionist was hesitant at first, but Alina's persistence paid off. Dr. Renner had retired years ago, but still kept a small office for research. Alina waited in a quiet hall filled with fading light and the soft tick of an antique clock. Finally, the door opened. Dr. Renner appeared, tall, thin, with silver hair tied back and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "You're the one asking about Ezra Cole?" "Yes," Alina said, standing. "My grandmother was close to him. I believe he saved me during the last storm." Dr. Renner studied her a moment, then nodded slowly. "Come in." Her office smelled of lavender and old paper. Books lined every wall, topics on trauma, paranormal, phenomena, and the psychology of memory. "I knew about Ezra," she said, pouring tea, "or at least I knew the stories. I interviewed 3 separate children who claimed he helped them during storms. All 3 swore he appeared just before. Disaster struck, always wearing the same dark coat, always knowing their names. Like he was summoned, Alina whispered. Not summoned, Dr. Renner said. Bound. Alina blinked. Bound? Dr. Renner leaned forward. After Ezra vanished in 1985, strange things happened in that area. Storms intensified unnaturally. People claimed to hear voices in the wind. One girl, 9 years old, said Ezra told her to hide in a closet just before her roof collapsed. She survived. Her parents didn't. She sipped her tea. But it wasn't just random. The survivors all had some connection. To your grandmother. Alina froze. Dr. Renner continued. Alma Bennett. I only met her once. But even then, I could see she knew more than she said. My grandmother never talked about him. Never once. Dr. Renner nodded. Because she made a deal. Alina's stomach twisted. What kind of deal? The doctor opened a file drawer and pulled out an old cassette tape. She placed it in a dusty recorder and hit play. A voice crackled through the static, faint, female, southern. If Ezra stays, they'll keep coming. If I bind him, maybe they'll stop. I don't care what it takes. I'll hold the wind myself if I have to. Alina's mouth went dry. That was my grandmother. She believed she could trap the energy that was following him, or redirect it, some kind of spiritual bargain. But whatever she tried, it didn't last. The storms came back, and Ezra with them. So you're saying she trapped him between life and death? Dr. Renner's eyes were gentle. No. I think he trapped himself, out of love. Alina closed her eyes. The attic, the journal, the boy, all of it, leading to this. Back at the house, Alina returned just before sunset. The attic called to her, not physically, but in that aching way that grief calls. She climbed up again, bringing a candle this time instead of a flashlight. In the hidden alcove, she placed the compass down and opened the journal once more. The pages fluttered on their own, stopping near the end. A new note had appeared, written in that same uneven handwriting. You're closer now, but they know you're looking. Be careful what door you open next. Suddenly the candle went out. Darkness swallowed the attic, then movement. Behind her. She turned. The boy again. But something was wrong this time. His eyes were darker, empty. His mouth opened too wide. Wider than any human mouth should, and he whispered, You opened the wrong door. Alina screamed and fell backward. The attic changed, the walls shifted, the air turned thick like syrup. The wind returned, not outside, but inside the house, circling like a predator. Then Ezra's voice cut through, Alina, run! A hand grabbed hers, real, warm, steady. Ezra pulled her down the attic ladder just as the shadows behind them curled into long, reaching fingers. They tumbled onto the hallway floor. The wind screamed behind them, furious, unnatural. Ezra turned to her, panting. They found it. The breach. Alina clutched his coat. What do I do? Ezra looked toward. The basement. There's one place left, the storm chamber. What is that? His voice dropped. The room she built to hold it all. The room beneath the rain. The sky split open with a crack of thunder as Ezra pulled Alina to her feet. Follow me, he said urgently, leading her down the hallway. The house groaned under the weight of the storm. Windows rattled, and the wind howled with a voice too human to be natural. Alina's pulse thudded in her ears, but she kept her eyes locked on Ezra's back as they descended the stairs toward the basement. It felt like they were running not just through space, but time, through generations of silence and secrets. Where are we going? She asked breathlessly. To the chamber your grandmother built. I didn't know she even had a basement. Ezra didn't answer. They reached the door at the end of the hallway, a narrow, rust-streaked thing hidden behind an old bookshelf. He pushed it open with both hands. Behind it was a staircase of stone, damp and steep. Alina hesitated. How did she build this without anyone knowing? Ezra turned to her, his face caught in flickering shadows. She didn't build it. She found it, and she made it worse. The chamber, the basement, was like nothing Alina expected. It didn't feel like part of the house. It was older, carved, from rock and clay. The walls were covered in symbols she didn't recognize. Circles, arrows, spirals that led to nowhere. At the center stood a wooden door, thick, sealed with rusted bolts. Around it were 7 lanterns, each lit with a cold. "Blue flame, this is the storm chamber," Ezra said. Alina stepped forward, drawn toward it. "What's behind that door?" Ezra's voice dropped. "The truth. The thing the wind protects. The reason I can't leave." Alina turned to him. "You said you vanished. People thought you died, but you didn't, did you?" He shook his head slowly. "I was taken." Alina blinked. "By who?" Ezra hesitated. "Not who. What?" Flashback. Ezra's disappearance. Ezra sat on an overturned crate, his eyes haunted. "I was 21. Your grandmother and I had plans to leave Gulf County, start over in Tennessee. She wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to work on boats. It was simple, beautiful, but the storms kept coming, worse every year. Then during Hurricane Kate, I tried to help a neighbor, an old man trapped in his attic. I waded through 6 feet of water, made it to his house, broke the window, but I never made it out." He rubbed his hands together. The wind changed. It was like something opened. I felt pulled, like gravity reversed. I saw faces in the rain. Then I was inside this place. A corridor of mirrors. No sky, no time. I don't know how long I was gone. Hours. Years. Alina's voice cracked. "But you came back." Ezra nodded. "Not really. Just enough to save people, children mostly, lost in storms. I could touch their world briefly. I became part of the pattern." "You mean like a spirit?" He shrugged. "Or a prisoner?" Alina backed away slowly, overwhelmed. "This can't be real." Ezra stood. "It is. And it's getting worse. Your presence triggered something. Me? You opened the attic, read the journal, brought memory into motion. It's what they were waiting for." "Who?" Ezra walked to the center of the chamber and pointed. "To the sealed door. The ones who live beyond the storm. The door shifts." Suddenly, one of the 7 lanterns flickered and went out. The stone floor beneath them vibrated slightly, like something had stirred deep below. Alina's breath caught. "What was that?" Ezra turned sharply. "They're waking." The second lantern dimmed. "Ezra." He moved quickly to a shelf and pulled down a stack of old scrolls, flipping through them. "We don't have much time." Alina saw her grandmother's handwriting on the edge of one page. "Storms obey cycles, but some winds remember names. When they whisper yours, run." Ezra held up a faded diagram. "There's a binding ritual, a way to delay the breach." Alina stepped closer. "You said my grandmother made a deal. Maybe I can undo it." Ezra nodded. "But it requires a sacrifice." She froze. "What kind of sacrifice?" He looked at her gently. "You have to give up something the wind still wants." Alina blinked. "What does that mean?" Another lantern died. The door moaned softly. A voice returns from the back of the chamber. A voice drifted forward. Familiar. Alina. She turned. Her grandmother stood in the shadows, not young, not old. A middle form, flickering, as if caught between decades. "You opened the door," Alma said, "and now the wind is listening again." Alina stepped forward, tears rising. "You knew, all this time, you knew he wasn't dead." "I had to bind him," Alma said softly. "He would have been lost forever. The wind needed a voice, and he offered his." "You used him," Alina whispered. "I loved him," Alma snapped. "And he loved me, but the wind is greedy. It takes what it wants and leaves the rest broken. I tried to lock it away. I failed." The 5th lantern sputtered. Alma turned to Ezra. "You still have time, but not much. She has to choose." Ezra walked toward Alina. "There's another way," he said, "but it's dangerous." "What is it?" "I go back through the breach, fully, no more in between." I stop being human. I become their echo. Alina shook her head. That would destroy you. Not if you close the door behind me. He held out a pendant, an old silver charm shaped like a compass. Throw this into the wind just before. It closes. It'll seal the breach, but only if you truly let go. Alina stared at it. So simple, so final. A choice. Thunder roared above them, shaking the chamber. The sixth lantern died. Alma turned to her granddaughter. It has to be now. If the last one dies, the door opens fully. Ezra reached for Alina's hand. You saved me once. Let me return the favor. Her hand trembled in his. I don't want to lose you, she whispered. You already did, he said softly. But I want to be remembered the right way. Alina stepped toward the door. It was humming now. Cold, air leaking through its cracks. Shadows spilled from the bottom, curling like smoke. Whispers rose from the floor, voices not quite human. She turned to Ezra one last time. Then, without another word, she opened the door. The breach, it wasn't a room. It was a void, a whirlpool of wind and memory stretching into darkness. Ezra stepped forward, his coat flaring behind him. The whispers surged louder. Shapes formed within the storm. Tall, robed figures with no faces. They reached for him, but hesitated. He turned back. Alina held the pendant tight. Now, he shouted. She threw it into the breach. It flashed once, bright silver, and vanished. The shadows screamed. Ezra stepped into the storm fully, and the door slammed shut behind him. Silence. The lanterns all reignited, steady blue flames. The room stilled. The air grew warm. Alma was gone. The door was sealed, bolted again with rusted locks that hadn't moved in decades. Alina stood in the quiet chamber, heart broken but still beating. The wind above the house faded to a whisper, and then stopped. A week later, Gulf County Beach. The sun was out for the first time in days. Alina stood barefoot in the sand, a single photograph in her hand. Ezra, young, smiling, holding a compass in one hand and a fishing rod in the other. She whispered, "Thank you," and then let the photo go. The tide took it. Behind her the clouds parted for the first time in her life. She felt no fear in the sound of the wind, only peace. The compass returns. The silver compass ticked steadily in Alina's palm, cold and damp. From the rain. She stared at it, unsure whether to feel fear or hope. She had sealed the chamber. She had watched Ezra walk into the storm. She had felt the finality of that moment, so why was the compass back? The wind outside had stilled for days after Ezra disappeared. No storms, no strange sounds, no flickers of shadow beneath the trees. But now he was reaching out, or something. Was the return of the storm. The weather app was clear, no forecasted rain, no warnings, yet that morning thunder growled low across the sky. Alina stood on the porch, clutching a mug of coffee she wasn't drinking. The wind had returned, soft at first, like fingers brushing through hair, but it carried something new, a name, her name, whispered again and again. Alina, Alina. She shut the door quickly and locked it. The compass on the table ticked. Louder. It pulsed like a heartbeat. Tick, 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 and then it stopped. Dead silence. When she picked it up again, the compass needle spun wildly, then locked into place, pointing due north. But not just north. It pointed towards something nearby. It wanted her to follow. Following the compass, she packed quickly. Flashlight, food, water, the pendant, her grandmother's journal. Something deep inside her had shifted since Ezra vanished. She wasn't just curious anymore. She was determined. Alina followed the compass through the woods behind the house, past trees bent with age, past streams swollen from last week's rain. She moved faster than she thought possible. After an hour, she came to an old well, moss-covered stones, iron grate rusted over. The compass needle quivered, then spun again, but this time it clicked. The stone beneath her feet pulsed once, softly, like a heartbeat. She stepped closer. Something was below. She lifted the grate. It groaned open, revealing a ladder descending into shadow. The well beneath Alina climbed down carefully. The air grew colder with each rung. She lit her flashlight, revealing carvings along the stone walls, spirals, hands, wind symbols, and eyes, watching from every surface. At the bottom of the well was a tunnel. She walked slowly, heart pounding. It wasn't a tunnel dug by hands. The rock was smooth, curved, almost grown, like the earth itself had shifted to form a path. After 20 minutes, she reached a circular room lit by flickering blue fire. She wasn't alone. Ezra's message. Ezra stood at the center of the chamber. Half shadow, half man. Alina gasped. Ezra? His eyes met hers, but they didn't shine with warmth. They glowed faintly like coals under ash. You came, he said. I wasn't sure if the compass would reach you. She stepped forward. You're alive. I'm between, he said softly, still myself, but I don't know for how long. Alina swallowed hard. You told me the breach was sealed. I thought it was. But something shifted. Someone opened another door. Alina's skin went cold. Who? Ezra stepped aside, revealing a shape behind him. It was a man. Tall, bearded, wearing soaked clothes and eyes full of madness. My father, Ezra said quietly. The other survivor, James, Ezra's father, had been lost in a hurricane in 1972, declared dead after his boat capsized near the Gulf. No body ever. Who found? He had been taken just like Ezra. But unlike Ezra, he never returned. Now he stood in the flickering light, half-possessed. Storms are doors, he muttered. And doors remember blood. Ezra explained. He was the first sacrifice, the first soul the wind claimed, but he didn't die. He became their speaker. James turned his head toward Alina. You brought the compass. That was the key. Alina held it tighter. Why me? Because you are blood of Alma. And she owes a debt. Ezra's voice broke. They never wanted me. They wanted you. She gave them me to delay them. Alina felt the ground tilt. Her grandmother had traded Ezra for her. The wind's demand James walked closer, eyes wild. You were meant to come. Of age beneath the third moon flood. You were meant to be claimed, but you left. You escaped the storm. Alina shouted, I didn't know any of this. I didn't ask for it. Ezra raised a hand protectively. You're not taking her, but James only smiled. The wind doesn't ask permission. It takes what it is owed. Suddenly, the blue fire surged around them. The chamber groaned. Stones. Trembling, Ezra grabbed Alina. We have to go now. But James stepped into the flames. I am the breach now, he whispered. And I will open every door. The escape Ezra pulled Alina back into the tunnel. The fire chased them, twisting, into hands and faces. Screaming wind filled the air, louder and louder. Alina slipped once. Ezra caught her. When they reached the ladder, the tunnel behind them collapsed in thunder and ash. Alina climbed frantically, heart in her throat. As she emerged from the well, the sky above was black again. Wind tore at the trees. The storm had returned. Ezra pulled himself out beside her, gasping. This wasn't supposed to happen. Alina looked at him, soaked, breathless. What now? Ezra looked toward the house. We fight back. We end this. The journal's final. Page back at the house. Lightning cracked above as Alina searched through the journal again. At the end, a final page, stuck to the back cover, came loose. It was a map. Not of land, but memory. A map of storm paths, soul movements, sacrifices. At the center of the spiral, a house with a circle drawn around it. Their house, written beneath it in Alma's careful handwriting. The eye is not where the storm ends. It's where the truth lives. There you must bury the name or be buried. Buy it. Alina looked up. What does that mean? Ezra stared at the page. It means the storm won't stop until your name is erased from its memory. She stepped back. You want me to erase who I am? No, Ezra said. I want you to become someone new. The eye of the storm. The next morning, they began the ritual. The compass was placed in the center of the field behind the house, surrounded by 7 candles. Ezra drew symbols in the dirt. Alina stood barefoot, holding the journal. The wind screamed. James appeared at the edge of the woods, mouth open in an unending howl. You can't hide, he shouted. You are a storm child. You belong to us. Alina's voice rang out. I am not yours. I am not my grandmother's guilt. I am not your sacrifice. She opened the journal and tore out the final page. She placed it on the ground. Ezra handed her a match. She lit the page. As the flames consumed it, the wind rose in fury, then stopped, just like that. Silence fell. James screamed, clutching his head. No, you've undone the name. He vanished, like smoke, the name, the storm. Forgot Alina stood frozen. The room, the silence, the air itself seemed to collapse inward. What did you just say? The man standing in front of her, the one who had saved her, risked everything, stood between her and the storm, was no longer Ezra. Or maybe he never was. I'm not who you think I am, he said quietly, sorrow coating every word. Ezra died the night your grandmother made the pact. His body was lost to the wind. I was taken, or created, I'm not sure which. Alina backed away. You're saying you're not real? I'm saying I wasn't meant to be, he said. But somehow I became. The truth beneath the storm, he spoke carefully, like each word was a weight. Your grandmother made the first trade. Ezra, her own son, in place of you. A life for a life, but the storm doesn't deal in straight lines. It doesn't forget names. He held out his hand. His palm bore the faint imprint of the compass symbol, a spiral. I was born from that trade, from memory, from storm and guilt, a vessel shaped to guide you back, so you could finish what Alma started. Alina shook her head. No, that can't be true. You were real. You bled. You fought for me. I did, he said, but it wasn't supposed to last. I was supposed to vanish after the breach was sealed. Her voice cracked. So why didn't you? He looked at her. Because somewhere along the way I wanted to stay. What the wind left behind, the storm hadn't returned. Not like before. No violent winds, no screams in the trees, but there was still something wrong with the house. Shadows didn't fall right. Doors sometimes opened on their own, and the compass, though burnt and cracked, still ticked faintly. Alina tried to pretend for a few days. She cooked, she cleaned, she watered the plants like it mattered, but Ezra, no, whoever he was, stayed distant, watching the sky, listening for the wind. Then one morning, the sound came again. Not outside, inside, from the basement. She ran down the stairs, barefoot and breathless, and saw a child, a small boy soaked to the bone, standing in front of the furnace. He turned. His eyes were the same pale blue as Ezra's. Don't forget me, he whispered, and disappeared. The final page Alina tore back. Through her grandmother's journal, reading every footnote, every margin scribble, and there, pressed between the last 2 pages, was something she hadn't noticed before. A dried feather. It was twisted, burned at the edges, as if it had come from something divine and angry, written on it in ink that shimmered like rainwater. If the storm forgets the name, it cannot find the soul. But the name must be given willingly. Alina looked up at Ezra. You told me to become someone new. Yes, that wasn't just metaphor, was it? No, he said. To end this, you have to let go of who you were. Completely. Burn the memory of yourself so the wind has nothing left to chase. She stared at the feather. I have to erase my name. He nodded. And I have to go with it. The farewell. They stood together by the well, the same place she had found him again, deep beneath the earth. Alina clutched the feather, the journal, and one last page she'd written by hand. On it, her full name, written in red ink, not just Alina Blake, but every version of her name, childhood nicknames, middle names, family names whispered through generations. Ezra, whoever he was, stood beside her. You were the first person I ever chose, he said, softly. Not because the wind told me to, because I wanted to. She turned to him. You may not have been born human, but you are more human than most. They kissed. It tasted like salt and lightning. Then she dropped the page into the well, and the wind screamed. The storm's final cry, it wasn't just wind, it was everything. The forest groaned, the ground shook, the clouds split open, but this time it didn't chase her. It recoiled. The storm lost its target. The name it had hunted, Alina Blake, was gone, burned, forgotten, and so the storm folded into itself. Like a paper map closing, Ezra smiled. You did it. But then his body shimmered, like mist caught in sunlight. I have to go. No, she whispered. It's okay, he said. I was born from the storm's memory. Now that it's gone, so am I. She reached out. He pressed the compass into her hand, silent now. Then he was gone. 1 year later, the house was quieter now. Still haunted, maybe, but only with memories. Alina had changed her name, not legally, spiritually. She introduced herself differently, lived differently. No more hiding, no more fear. She had kept the compass, now motionless, resting in a glass case on her desk. The feather was gone. So was the storm. The final twist one morning. As she walked through the woods, she came across a child sitting beside the creek, a boy, maybe 8 or 9. His eyes were a soft blue. He looked up and smiled. You look familiar, he said. She froze. Do I? I had a dream about you, he said. In the dream you were crying, but then you looked up and said, I remember now. He handed her something, a small stone carved with a spiral, then ran off, laughing. Alina stood there for a long time, staring at the spiral. The wind brushed her cheek gently. Not a scream, just a whisper. The end.